Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, our first of 4 community conversations in building a compassionate and resilient response to our current crisis amidst the yoga community. So I want to welcome you all. And before we get started, as people are coming on, I want to make sure everyone can hear me. So if you could type yes into the chat window, if you can hear me, that would be great. Okay, good, got one answer. So we will get started. So again, I want to welcome you all and thank you for being here. As I said, this is the first of 4 panel discussions that I'll be hosting this week. Each day is going to have a unique, different panel of yoga teachers and community leaders and it is really intended to be a springboard for discussions and conversations that you might take back to your own local communities. So I would like to introduce our panel for today. We have Christina joining us from Colorado. She's a longtime yoga teacher, Live the Light of Yoga is her trainings. We have Lisa Paterson from Ottawa. Lisa is a yoga therapist with the Ottawa Integrative Cancer Center. We have Julie Dohrman of Shakti Yoga, also a longtime teacher and teacher trainer down in New York City, joining us from Brooklyn. And we have Lisa Briggs, who is joining us from Newport, Rhode Island, and she is an intuitive coach and longtime yoga and has graciously agreed to lead us in this. So I'm going to invite you, Lisa, to lead us in a centering. And you'll see Lisa Briggs' camera is going in and out. She doesn't actually look
sorry.
Priest-like figure that's there. So she'll be coming in and out for today. All right. So Lisa.
Yes. So yeah, thank you, Barrie, and welcome to everyone who's with us today. Just want to suggest that we pause and maybe close your eyes or maybe keep them open, depending on what allows you to gather yourself in some way. So if you were to pause and actually bring your hand or hands to your heart, and maybe even to bow into your hands, like to lean your heart into your hands. And just for a moment, even noticing your heartbeat. And it might be beating faster than usual, and we're not going to make that wrong. And if we were to pause and just honor the willingness to show up here, and perhaps just allow ourselves to even feel into all the feelings that are present at this really unprecedented time. And if we were to even for a moment remember that we can bless one another, and that perhaps as we gather, we can even say a silent word or phrase to those gathered and those who cannot gather today. Something about, you're allowed to be a good human, and this is hard, and that doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. To come back in. It's all yours, Barrie.
Great, thank you so much. I needed that. Good. All right, so the purpose of this conversation, actually, it started, I was sitting at home this weekend thinking I just, for myself, really needed some community and connection. And I just wrote to like 30 people that I thought I would love to talk to about this new reality we've been lurched into over the past few weeks. And many of those people I wrote to said yes. Several of those people that I wrote to wanted to say yes, but they are studio owners that are scrambling to move their classes online. So they couldn't be here. So I think I want to start out by just saying that this is a position of privilege to just be able to sit here together and have some time to connect and talk about these topics. And yeah, so just to acknowledge that this reality is keeping a lot of people very, very busy. And so there are a lot of people that wanted to be here. And hopefully, again, we can take back what comes up in this conversation back to our local communities. Okay. So before we get started, I just wanted to mention that I really see this panel discussion as kind of planting the seeds for future ideas and conversations that can happen in your local communities. And just due to the constraints of the webinar platform, we're not able to really have an extended discussion, but I invite everyone on this call to participate through the chat window. I will do my best to facilitate it and integrate your comments into our conversation. I think it's freezing and going in and out, so our technical support is doing our best. I'm not sure if we'll have to start again, but I think we're okay. Okay, all right. So let's get started. Basically, I came up with 4 questions, kind of frame our conversation, and they were in the little write-up for these sessions. And the 4 questions are: how can our practices serve us right now? How can we best serve others? What are the challenges and questions we have? And what are the creative solutions that we are hearing about or coming up with to continue to support our communities? So I'd like to begin by asking all of you here on the panel to share from your own personal experience, like what is going on for you today? How are you doing? And what is one understanding that is supporting you right now?
I'll go first. Can I go first?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you heard me. So an interesting thing happened over the last couple of days where the announcement came out with the mandates for everything to close, non-essentials, businesses and such to close. That means the yoga studios. We'll talk about the studios. And a couple of them were remaining open. Personally, I strangely got excited about all of my introvertedness now can actually have an excuse to be. And there, on one level, personally, I was excited to have some time to really get to things. Almost like, this is just totally personal. It was like a retreat. And the scramble toward readjusting has been really big. I am appreciating.
Since I have the camera on, I think I'll take advantage before my tech knocks me out. I apologize for that. So I'm not a yoga teacher. I am trained in Kundalini, but kind of how we move through the day with those daily practices. And right now, because we have to take our needs seriously, because there is no separation between the body and the mind. Like, I don't even know who made up that, phrase, mind, body. It's like it's all the same. And I'm really afraid. But I keep getting the feeling, and I keep getting the words, that we sort of have a sacred pact right now, to keep ourselves really tuned up and, balanced and tend our nervous systems, to ourselves, but also, like, this is our moment, curtains up, there's no holding back now. It's like go time. And it's time to bring, the sacred pact to me is also about bringing, the beauty of our own unique gifts and what we know, what we've studied, what we've taught, what we've practiced into the world. Like, we can't hold back at this point. That's kind of my sense of just the world in general. It's like, you remember that story, Stone Soup? I don't know if you remember it, but everybody brought like, somebody put in a carrot and somebody put in a potato and somebody put in an onion. And I feel like in that in the collective, that we all have something to bring, and we have to bring it. That's my sense. I don't know if I answered the questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Well,
and lemon balm. I really recommend lemon balm right now. So good.
So for me, I've been feeling a lot of grief and a lot of fear, for sure. As I'm playing that fine balance of trying to stay connected to what's going on, but also protect my ability to be present, so like I'm going back and forth between staying informed and trying to get grounded and go and be with the trees, sort of thing. And there are two things that I was thinking about related to our, for those of us who are yoga practitioners, these are really familiar terms, and we've often defined them in certain ways. So the one is tapas. And my understanding of this term right now is kind of evolving, where I feel like, so tapas, for those who aren't as familiar with the term, is about kind of friction and creating heat. And we often talk about this term when we're talking about our asana practice, our yoga, our physical yoga practice. But I'm like, right now in life, like in what's going on, that's the tapas. That it's there, it's already here. So you don't have to create it. You don't have to go seeking it out necessarily. And that might be kind of like, that might even be reassuring for some of us, where we're like, oh, so maybe I can, in my practices, I can search for a place of ease. Like maybe that's allowed, there's enough tapas right now. And so that, for me, I've just been playing with those ideas and thinking about that a lot, that maybe for some of our clients, our students, our practitioners, that might be a interesting way to think about it right now, that you're allowed to seek out a place of ease, that we all need this in this time. And the other one, when I was thinking about, again, our traditional way of thinking about terms, the other word is santosha. And so that's another word that most of us in the yoga land know about, and it has to do usually with content. And, I was thinking about that word in terms of, again, these unprecedented times that we're living in right now, and how maybe the way to work with that right now is to not try to create equanimity, not to try to seek to be content or happy. Like maybe we're missing the mark if we're trying to go in that direction. Maybe it's more about right now, like reassuring ourselves and others, it's okay to not be okay. Like, really, I mean, there's a great, as far as resources are concerned, there's a psychotherapist online named Megan Devine, who has this beautiful website called Refuge in Grief. And so she says it's okay to not be okay. And we also talked about that actually at my yoga therapy training, that there may be a way to rethink what we're trying to reach for as far as our emotional layer of being, and even knowing that it's okay to be angry, it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be scared. Like we don't have to try to, cut those unwelcome guests out of our lives right now. It's okay to be with those, and it's actually even okay to let those inform our choices, which is also a bit of an unusual way to think. So that's what I've been thinking about.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Must be my turn.
Yeah.
Let's see. Really got a lot out of your sharing, everybody. Thank you. I've been, in a contemplation mostly about the difference between this feeling that I'll be okay, and the distinction between I'll be okay and things will be okay. So when I use the word okay, I'm saying just at the deepest level of being, and not okay like competent and functional okayness, just at the deep level of where where do I know myself to be resting? Like in what deepest truth or have my practices been pointing me to? And I'm in a contemplation about that because I've had anxiety and my own fears surface. And I've been teaching online for a long time. So, and I also have long periods of time where I'm at home without formal work. And then I go away and I teach workshops or I give training. So there's a way that this particular avenue of social distancing is just another Monday for me. This is what most of my Mondays look like, except that my next weekend's work is canceled and several weekends after that, and some big trips and some immediate streams of income that were part of my budgeting on a very practical level are postponed. And so I'm dealing with those kinds of financial concerns and realities of budgeting. And I wrote a blog entry about this. So, you can't pay bills with money you don't have. And so I am watching the online movement online for teaching, and with a lot of compassion and for studio owners and people on the ground teaching yoga and students who depend on studios for places of sanctuary and community and support. And so I'm watching that happen, and I haven't jumped into the fray to put my own next yoga class online because I have hundreds of yoga classes online. I'm findable in that way. And I want the people who are out of their immediate circumstance to shift and get online in that way. So that's not been my particular emphasis. I have some programs that I'm working on and just doing my best in a sense to be with the students who are involved in current programs and offering them any kind of support, community connection. And I've found that in the actual work of that, I find it soothing. And I've really been reminded of why I like to teach yoga. Is it keeps me close to the teachings. It keeps me close to my practices. It keeps me close to people who are interested in those things also. So the actual mechanism of being in some kind of work-related activities has been useful for me. And so that kind of has been a contemplation around faith and fear for me, and where my faith is sourced, and the difference, like I said, between faith that I'm okay, like held in some field of grace, different than faith in everything will work out. I can see that there will be tremendous losses. There'll be studios that won't make it through this time. There'll be restaurants I love that will close. There'll be, whether I can keep my house. There's all of these things. Even I wrote about this in my blog recently, that even I don't think of health as a thing, but we're in the beginning of this. And so it's likely that people we know and people who in our sphere will get sick and lose health and be compromised. And so even my best planning and creative solutions here at the outset, where my energy feels buoyant, and I think will be tested and challenged, and more will be coming. And so I have these kinds of sober conversations with myself, and yet I feel in touch with some kind of faith deeper than that circumstance. And my basic practice, as I've been getting older and practicing, as I've gotten older, isn't so much about turning myself into a really good yogi. I really thought one day I would somehow be different. Like yoga would mean I don't get scared, or I would have a positive attitude, all the time, instead of my generally sort of sarcastic mode. But that hasn't happened. But I do feel more able to tell the truth about anxiety as it arises. Yeah. And to be with it for what it is as it arises, and to feel that I don't have to put that at odds with being a person of faith also, that they live side by side, informing one another. And so I feel that to me is really just a real active consideration how is it those things can live together. And then I can also sort of give one a little bit more priority. One of the, my husband does Chinese medicine, and when he was researching some of the protocols they're using in regions of China to treat the coronavirus with Chinese medicine, almost all of the indications, they're getting very good results with the allopathic care combined with the TCM protocols. But almost all of the herbal protocols, one of the indications on it says soothes patient's mental state. Mm-hmm. And in every single formula that's been recommended for the treatment of the virus, that's one of the benefits of the herbal protocols. And we got to talking about how scary it is to not take a full breath, and how we don't breathe fully when we're anxious. And so they feed each other, like you're saying, no separation between the body and the mind. If I breathe shallowly, I'll start to feel afraid. But if I feel afraid, I'll breathe shallowly. and then we're also thinking about how the pathogen of fear is circulating via social media, news feeds, and whether it's fear and panic in bulk buying of things we don't need, fear and panic of envisioning the worst possible outcome, or the refusal to have a healthy respect, which is kind of like, to me, the opposite of that. It's just a rebellion from it. I won't feel afraid enough. But I was just thinking that that's like a part of the contagion, and part of the symptomology is fear. And so that's kind of what's on my mind these days, and working with that. Yeah.
Great. We have some questions coming in, but before we do that, I just want to share for myself. Thank you all for your sharing. I also got a lot out of it. And like you, Christina, I've been teaching online for a while. My husband and I work at home a lot. So now we have our 12-year-old daughter with us. So that's kind of, that's been the major disruption kind of in our everyday lives. Although yes, plans are getting canceled. But I've gone through, so like I did not sleep well last night. I've been really, I've gone through so many different phases of frustration, anger, judgment, fear, and at the same time, waves of really feeling galvanized and energized. Like many of you said, that like now is the time for us to be of service in some way. Like it's just, we want that, and navigating how to best do that, how to support, being a teacher that knows the learning curve of what it means to get online. I also have a lot of compassion for the studios that are trying to do it really quickly, and everyone's kind of handling it in their own way. And there's so many offers of help on the one hand, and people just trying to figure out their options. And it's like, sometimes I feel like the best help I can give is just to kind of be silent and let people know I'm here if they want. So it's a challenging, line to walk, to really want to be of service and not to know the best way really to serve. And I imagine that will continue. And I had a dream the other night about a story, the story of the blind men and the elephant. I don't know if you guys know that story. It's a Buddhist story about 6 blind men who want to know what an elephant is. And, so one touches the legs of the elephant and says, I know an elephant is like a tree. One touches the tail and says, an elephant is like a string. And they all have their own perception based on the part of the elephant they've touched. But of course, the elephant is none of those things. And what was interesting was, in the dream, I wasn't telling it. I was telling it to somebody, but I wasn't telling it as if there were 6 blind men. It was one man touching different parts of the elephant. And so that's been my contemplation for this week, really seeing that this reality we're dealing with has I have been relating to it in all these different ways. They're all part of the puzzle, of the pieces of the reality, the collective reality that we're dealing with now. And yet there's part of me that knows there's also, there's so many different perspectives, right? There's the historical perspective on how this will impact the generations to come. There's the transcendental, perspective. And so I'm sitting, it's been a really rich contemplation, actually, sitting with all these different perspectives in my own experience and everywhere. And looking at it from that has been, it's been really interesting for me to think about. So that's kind of where I'm at today. So I want to just talk about some of the questions that have come up, some of the comments that Tammy shared. I think someone is addressing this, but I'm feeling a real pull not to share the deep sadness that I'm feeling. Like I have a responsibility to be uplifting. And I wonder if someone can speak to this and our differing ways to experience the moment and how a deep honesty to ourselves may not be what to teach. I think that's a great topic. So let's talk about that for a few minutes. Who wants to jump in and talk about that? Well put, Tammy. Thank you.
I'll take a hit at it. Hold on, I'm thinking. I think I've had an online business for a long time, and we have social media and all of that. So for me personally, it's always been a balance in terms of, what do you tell, what do you not tell, how do you show up, how much real is the right amount of real, and, can you sort of be in that mix and still hold space and inspire, and be available in the way clients need you to be. And again, I'm not a yoga teacher. I'm, somebody with a therapy background and now doing the intuitive coaching. But, my sense is that everything's just being shattered. All the structures in our, culture, borders are being shattered. This is like a global issue. It's a global pandemic. And I think it's also about, some of our false selves. So even though you never want to be somebody really in any situation except with your very closest friends and family, who's kind of spilling everything, without care, some of it we have to bear on our own. But I think, if anything, this is all calling for, more transparency, for more of the real, because we have to be connected. This is all about heart, I think, and lungs or grief, all the chest kinds of things. To me, the medicine is always coming back to the heart center. When I studied Kundalini yoga, more in depth last year, so much lands in the heart. We put our prayer hands to our heart. We drop into the heart. That's how we get our read. If the heart and the mind aren't, connected, you're in trouble. Then the mind is running, and, we know that what's up there is kind of garbagey and not, all that reliable in terms of a true read on things. So, sometimes I really believe that it's as simple as, if you can truly connect to the heart, and you can do it, as simply as putting your hands on your heart and literally connecting, for just a moment, you get a sense of where the balance is. You get a sense of, what's true, what's useful, where you are. You can read the energy. You can, I call it the intuitive body. You can come in to that place where there's some guidance and there's some knowing, and you can feel your way. And I think, we're not going to be necessarily protected anymore by the old rules. There's no rules right now. We don't know anything. We don't know what's going on. We don't know what's happening exactly. We certainly don't know exactly what's coming, although everybody has their theory and their, whatever, which is fine. But the truth is we don't know, and things are breaking apart. And, and so I think in any moment like that, during this kind of crisis or ever, if you can make sure that you are in connection, and coming into the heart, for example, and finding your breath, and finding that place inside of your body, that can guide you from there, a lot of balance can come, and we can be the mix of the imperfect, and the wise and the loving and the vulnerable and the, everything else that we are. I think when the mind starts to run, we're not going to come from a good place, and we're not going to be of service, and we're not grounded in anything that we can really share with any confidence. So I think coming into the body, coming into the heart, and then you open your mouth. I think that's what I wanted to say.
Does anybody want to add anything to that?
I would say that also I agree with everything that you said, and I would add that along those same lines with no rules is just a self-knowledge, about where your own comforts are. What might work for someone might not work for you, and what might work for you to hold authentic space for yourself and for those people in sort of your care, it might just look different than it's somebody else's. And some people are able to share with tremendous vulnerability and transparency and remain present. And some people get swept up in those feelings and can't do their job in that state. And so it's not so much to me about what it looks like out on the surface as much as knowing oneself and responding with a kind of authenticity to what's actually true. I take a lot of courage from, the 12-step communities. They talk about sharing from experience, strength, and hope. And sometimes all we have is raw experience. We haven't have any strength within that. And sometimes those conversations I have with my therapist, because it's just for experience. It's not digested. It's not processed. There's not strength in it yet. And there's certainly no hope for others to lean on. But I also find that if I'm hearing only hope and there's no kind of Shakti of someone's hard-won strength through their deep integrated experience, it sounds empty. So to me, those things inform one another a lot. And I do believe that in the power of prayer, just to say, to pray to be of service, to pray to be useful. And so that when we, like you're saying, drop into the body, that sounds exactly what I think of when I think of, oh yeah, I pray that what I'm experiencing, what I'm working with and struggling through, that it might provide hope and permission and solidarity in some way. So, and I think that's in some ways what we're offering people really is our presence.
Sorry.
If I could just tag onto that.
I'm sending an alert. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I think you're right. I think the prayer for me comes in the form of my intention to serve, and that whatever I say, if it comes from that intention, for me, that is a guidepost for that. Kind of helps me have that discrimination. And I also love what you said about sharing with the hope and with the strength. And I often think of that in terms of contemplated experience, sitting with experience long enough to digest it in a way that it can be offered in a way that feels of service. But I agree that heart space for me is that intention to be of service.
Yeah.
Laura is participating from Rome, and she says, here we're really experiencing a very strange way to live that we've never lived before. It's shaky in the foundation. It's shaky to the foundation of a human being. So she's asking, do you have suggestions on practices to soothe the emotions and manage drastic changes?
Barrie, can you repeat that? Because I missed part of what you said. Repeat the question.
In Rome, they're living a reality they've never lived before, and it feels shaky to the foundation of being a human being. And so the question is, do you have suggestions for practices to soothe the emotions and manage drastic changes? Lisa. Paterson, you might
Yeah.
speak to that from your yoga therapy background.
Yeah, I think we all have ideas about this for sure. So I think what I would say initially is that I wanted to draw on what Lisa talked about earlier about the shattering. And, you know, there will be times in our lives, and it's just we don't always expect it to be a collective experience, but there will be times in our lives when we are shattered, you know, and probably looking at all of us, by the time we get to the age that we are, I'm 53, we will have had some shatterings of some kind. And what happens mostly for most of us in a major transition or a shattering, not always, but it can be that those things that served us, those practices we relied on, like that somehow we are left so bereft, and that's when we want them to work most, right? When things are falling apart. But what we notice sometimes in transition is that everything is like a sand in an hourglass, like everything falls away, including what the ways that we used to soothe ourselves or support ourselves or find support. And so just to say that before we try to, because I know there's that feeling of I've got to find the thing, right? I've got to find the things that are going to do the thing for me. And there's that, even when I'm saying that, I can feel my own sort of heart go faster and my breath kind of get shallower. It's that fear that there will be no way, you know, to get through this. And so in my own work in my own personal practice, as well as the work that I do with others, the place that we usually start is actually before trying to find the thing. But like, can we just sit for a moment with this feeling of everything is gone, you know? And it's that, like that layer, if you look at the Panchamaya Kosha model, which is a model in the yoga, you know, world of how a human being is made up of these different layers, right? And so there's this layer called the Manomaya Kosha, which is psychosocial, emotional stuff. And so if you consider that layer, there's this layer of emotions. Emotions are coming up, and we're not great as a society, I'd say, as a culture, at letting emotions come up and letting them just disappear, you know. And one of my I'm a retired psychotherapist, and one of my therapist friends says, you know, the only way to get rid of an emotion is to feel it. So there's this practice that we can develop of stopping and noticing and sometimes finding where we feel it in the body. Oh, I feel that in my throat. You know, I feel that in my heart. I feel that in my gut. And that is a beautiful practice. I think for me right now, and for some, that's a beautiful practice right now, that can be a place to begin where we don't try to avoid the feeling. We don't try to, you know, like spiritual bypass all that. So we don't try to get away from it. We go, wow, this is where we're starting. And it can be helpful to have someone who's practiced in this. Like, we may need some support around this, or we may be able to do it on our own. But that is a practice in and of itself that may help to clear a little space or create a little bit of lightness.
Thank you. Does anybody want to add anything to that? Practices?
I'll share just that that was beautiful, Lisa. Thank you. There's two Lisas, right? You're both Lisa. That was just beautiful. I think I just want to say there really is no one answer. There's no one way at all. And I really appreciated, Lisa, what you said, that it could bring on this feeling of like failure, you know, like all these practices I've been doing and they're not working. I have experienced that in my own life when things have shattered and situations have come up where I have felt my world has fallen apart. Everything in the immediacy has had to shift by circumstance, not by my choice, which makes it all the more difficult to reground and regroup. But there is this other thing that one of my teachers likes to say, and he calls it dropping of the jeweled necklace. And in this teaching, it is understood that the jeweled necklace is the teachings and the practices. And along the way, we might drop this necklace. And even though it's jeweled, it is everything that we need. And but we might periodically through time and through life drop it. And he basically just says, pick it up again. It's right there. And put it back on. And even if it takes several tries, like, you know how you are when you're trying to put on a piece of jewelry and you miss the clasp and you have to try like 3 times, 4 times, whatever. It's that idea. Just keep working with it again. It's right there. It's right there. And you just start slow again. I know for myself, when I have dropped my meditation practice, I go back to the beginning. I go back to 15 or 20 minutes, as opposed to where I was at whatever I was at, you know, time-wise. And that's what I have been doing. I have been doing shorter practices because that's what I can manage. It's really just about what my inner attention can really manage. Much as I love it and I'm familiar with it and I'm aware and all the beauty that comes from and the ease that comes from doing my practice, I've gone back to the basics. I've gone back to super simple. Same thing in my asana practice. I was speaking with a yoga teacher friend of mine the other day, and we were just commenting about how we're teaching a lot of the what we call like our greatest hits, just the basics in our practices when we're teaching, but also my own personal practice. I'm just doing simple, 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 and then, you know, seeing what comes up from there. Like, this isn't the time necessarily to reinvent the wheel and come up with like the greatest new way to practice some pose. It's like the kind of thing that teachers offer to the prenatal student, you know, when they come into class and they're like, I'm, you know, 4 months pregnant or 3 months pregnant or something like that. And you want to offer them opportunities to practice. One of the guidelines is that this is not the time for you to like learn the really hard poses. That's how I feel about practices right now. Just keep it super simple. And I'll add one more thing. This dynamic we're in now of social distancing, and I know we have not experienced it entirely in the United States the way it's happening in Italy, and we hear in other places, although San Francisco just have I forgot what they're calling it, but the Bay Area
shelter.
Yeah, home shelter thing. It's coming, you know, it's possible, it's coming. But with that, there is an opportunity. I don't even want to use that word, you know. But we're going to be seeing potentially different ways to take our practices just and do them in different ways. And all of this online stuff that's occurring is another way of finding connection within. So I just think keep it simple, 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 simple. That's what I have to offer.
Can I just say something about what you said? Because I think you said something really important, even though you didn't call it this. And I think we're all sort of circling around it a little bit, maybe. Yeah, this is like not a time for perfectionism. It's not a time for all or nothing, or trying to do it right, or make it complicated. In some ways, I think maybe that's part of what is shattering.
Right.
Yeah, the nonsense. Like the nonsense and the ego and what we hold on to as these identities. You know, like a little bit is really good. You know, anything, you know, just for me, even moving my spine, like Kundalini is very much about, you know, flexing the spine and moving the energy up the spine and opening up the intuition. And, you know, I was really surprised last night. I did very little. I got on my mat at like 8 o'clock. I was in a state, actually. But even just like a little bit of, you know, flexing the spine and, you know, a couple other things, a little bit of meditation, it was so unbelievably powerful. And I felt, you know, so blessed. And I felt grace, you know, something was giving me access to grace. And I think, you know, in this country, we get into a lot of perfectionism. Women, you know, are so bound by it. And this is absolutely not the time for that. Like a little, small, you know, whatever is perfect, and let it be perfect. Sorry, didn't mean to use that word. But it's enough, you know, and it really can be enough. And, you know, so more than ever, we need to be really compassionate and forgiving, you know, around what we think we should be doing versus what we're able to do, and just rest into that.
Yeah. I use a really simple practice too. in the spirit of all of these things, of saying to myself, this is a moment of suffering. And then asking myself where I feel that in my body. So if it's anxiety, do I feel it in my heart? Those kinds of basic acknowledgments of what is as it is the doorway. My life as it is, my emotional state as it is. And it's a moment of suffering. To just acknowledge that for myself goes a long way. And then to put it into my body so that it's not any more or less than my embodied experience. And that helps me get grounded. And then also bringing breath to it. So in terms of a very tangible, simple on-the-go practice for me, wow, I'm having a moment of suffering. I feel it in my heart, it's pounding. And then if I can ask myself what I need in the moment, sometimes I can actually respond. And that, those sort of, to me, is like a little bit of a very encapsulated way to bring a lot of that to life in the moment, if that's helpful. So I was listening with such appreciation for the depth of experience and wisdom being shared, and just meeting life as it is. And so there you are, and our callers in Italy, further ahead into the isolation, and with the statistics having taken a deeper and more full shape there. So, and I would assume it's filled with suffering, and like kind of just I was appreciating how everyone shared that nothing seems to be gained by pretending that's not so, and pretending that it's not so doesn't open the door to what's possible on the other side as we walk through the discomfort and the difficulty.
Right. Great. So I'll read a couple of the comments that have come in. And as I do, we have about 10 minutes left. So for those of you that are participating via the chat, if you have any questions or any ideas or anything else you want to share, go ahead and type it in, and we'll get through as many as we can in these last few minutes. So Leticia, who's on from Vienna, she said, it could be that I had been in these situations before. I had been in situations where I've been lost without knowing who or what or why to trust anymore. And something that helped me every time had been to realize that we have no control, and that's okay. It's to learn how to keep trusting life and science. And if we see the improvements that are happening in China, we can expect a period of hard days ahead, but that they will come to an end. And the hope is that we'll come out from these stronger than before. And she's also, so trust is one big thing for her, and stop checking social media. That's what we've been doing, and trying to enjoy what I have right now. And I know a lot of people have said that, are using this as an occasion to go off Facebook, to go off, to take a break and just be with their children, with their families. I've actually needed the support and connection. I'm really grateful for, like just yesterday, one of my students who's a cello player, he posted a 3-minute piece, just played it. And I thought, what a beautiful offering. And I'm just so much more appreciative of being able to just reach out to people that pop into my mind, like I did for you, Julie, last week. I thought, how are you? You know, just being able to connect with people, for me, has been a gift. And I know that everybody has their own way to deal with that. And I certainly go through different periods myself. But just to say that I think there's both, there's a lot to deal with with all that now. And then Corey shared that I find and you had your dog, I saw your dog there, Julie. I find my pets have been very supportive to me. Somehow they seem to know when my mind is racing with thoughts, and they come to me for attention and a good session of pets. Sweet.
Yes.
Yeah, animals in nature.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like that's what we can rely on.
Hello.
Can always use a cute little animal shot.
There's Rocket.
Somebody mentioned earlier in the chat the dog on the couch, Christina.
Yeah. Always there.
Good girl.
You know, I do want to just also acknowledge, you mentioned the privilege it is to have the time and access to technology to consider these things together. And as we've been talking, there's been a voice in my own mind thinking about people who live with compromised immune systems on a daily basis, who normal interactions put their health at risk, and not in a global pandemic, but just in day-to-day life. And I had several students in a studio I used to own who had, environmental sensitivities and couldn't come to class if we wore essential oils or lotions. And that I don't say that to diminish those of us who are having to learn about that reality for the first time in our adult lives, but to say, for me, when I have those experiences where my privileges get exposed to me, the privilege of an able body, of a generally well-functioning immune system, of a business and a set of practices that I have am established in enough to drop so that I can pick them up again, and the access to community. And when any of my privileges get exposed, I find it, I really want it to be a way that my compassion grows, my capacity for my own places of fear to help me be more sensitive to fear that many people live with all the time. And so that's just another piece I wanted to say has been part of my contemplations enough, is that this become a tenderizer for me, a way that it doesn't shut me down or harden my heart or discourage me, but helps me open my heart with greater compassion to the suffering that's always there amongst us, even though it's hitting me in my particularly privileged world in this way. It's breaking down those barriers, and I think ultimately is a really good thing. But some people have a lot of time in on the game way ahead of us on this from living with it all the time.
I just really appreciate you saying that, Christina, so much. It's been on my mind as well, so much, especially just in general in yoga land. And yoga teachers at the local sphere. I live in the local sphere of teaching. The impact on the studios, you said it also in the beginning, some studios don't know if they're going to stay open and be able to stay open after this, what is called a short period of closing. Right now, it's a short period of closing. So there's so much more to say, the layers and the levels of the number of people that are affected. And then, of course, outside the yoga sphere, the service industry in general, it's going to it keeps going. But our conversation, I know, is largely about the yoga sphere right now. And it is very much on my mind. Those that also don't have dual income. I don't have dual income. I haven't established a passive income stream. So there's that. All these things that are going to just continue to unfold. And you also said it in the beginning, and we need to acknowledge again, this is really just the beginning of this whole phase for us. Even though the virus has been happening, we're just at this part of how it's being dealt with. We're at the very beginning. And I want to say something also my therapist was so keen to remind me of yesterday, which is that no one knows how to do this. None of us know how to deal with this. That's the nature of it being unprecedented. We've never seen it before. And that means no one, obviously, we know the people at the top are poorly showing, or very well showing that they don't know how to deal with it. And then, but then also just the emotional way of dealing with something like this, let alone the outward critical way of the finances of it all. And
yeah. So I'm not sure we'll see, the chat maybe wasn't working for a while. I don't know that this has gone flawlessly technically, but hopefully we'll be sending around the recording. So I think hopefully the recording will be fine. I did want to end just by sharing something that a student wrote to me the other day, because I think it was really, I think it's something that probably many of us can relate to, which is she's been a teacher for a while. She's 53, but she realized just in the last week that she always thought of herself as much younger than she actually is. And this is the first time that she really gets that people, her students, are looking to her for guidance and support and leadership. And I just share that because I think that in this moment of deconstruction and everything falling apart, there is, for all of us who teach these practices, we are, by the nature of what we do, we are community leaders because we we teach groups of people in community. That's what we're trained to do. That's what we do. And so if there's one hopeful, really energizing thought I have, it's that all the amazing people I know who do this work we're all looking for ways to serve. We're all looking for creative solutions to help the most vulnerable populations continue. Those are the people that actually need our practices the most, to serve those people. So, there is, I don't have any solutions really. I was joking before we started, my one creative solution is like making healthy soup. Like that's one thing I think I feel like I can really stand in right now and taking walks outside. But I do think this poising we are poised in a moment where if we're on the lookout for opportunities to be of service in our communities, they will be there, and we will all have a part to play in that.
Amen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said, Barrie.
Great. So thank you all for being here. Julie dropped off. Maybe she had to go take care of her dog. Lisa, do you want to share something?
I was just going to say, should we share our contact information?
Sure.
Or maybe watching. I'm Lisa Briggs, intuitivebody.com, or on Facebook, I have a free group called Follow Beauty, and I'm giving away a lot of free stuff right now. So
great.
I'd love to see
Intuitive Body. Anyone else have any resources they want to share?
I just want to say I'm sorry I disappeared. My computer died.
Oh.
So I had to scramble to, glad I was able to jump back in. Sorry, I was like mid-sentence also. Resources. So I can be found teaching now online at Bend and Bloom Yoga Studio. Scrambled incredibly fast and got it up and running, and I am just so impressed with the owner of the studio and her husband. They just rallied together. So it's www.bendandbloom.com, and they're going to be live streaming classes. They're also uploading recorded classes, so that's going to be coming together. And, just one comment too, I have known a ton of yoga teachers and even this particular studio owner who's always been like, I really got to do the online thing. I want to get my stuff online. And I hate to make a joke, but it is like nothing like a pandemic. And, the mandate of social distancing to light a fire under everybody's butt and make it happen. And the speed at which people have made it happen and have just attacked their fear around technology, myself included, like the whole Zoom thing. Christina, both of you, Barrie, just like, God bless you for tackling it earlier on. It's daunting for me. So onward. And then I am Julie Dohrman, Shakti Yoga New York, NY.com. So yeah.
I'm Christina Sell, livethelightofyoga.com, and plenty to do there.
And I don't know if you can still hear me, but I'm Lisa Paterson, and you can find me at lisapattersonyoga.com, or you can find me on Facebook at Lisa Paterson Yoga. And I think we're all trying to figure out what to offer. I'm going to have a few free things and other services available. So thank you guys so much for talking with me and talking amongst each other today. That was really supportive and good for me. So thank you.
Great. And I'm Risman.com, and my online community is called The Skillful Yogi. All right. So why don't we end the way we began? Just bring our hands to our hearts. You can close your eyes. And if you'd like, we can send blessings to everyone that's here, virtually, live, listening. And may those blessings expand and be galvanized into service for the benefit of all. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Honor.
Bye.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye.